So Triss, Nintendo just released a brand new trailer for Skyward Sword HD, one of several recently actually, but this one actually goes in deep on some of the changes they're making to the game, some of the quality of life changes. The whole trailer just focused on them, which is great, because one of the questions people had, are they changing anything else about it? And sure enough, it seems they are. So among the changes that they've confirmed are the fact that you can now get optional help from Fi, which I think means you can basically ignore her, but I've seen some other people worried that maybe it's new hints from her that you can now choose to engage in, which I really hope isn't the case, because the less Fi, the better, in my opinion. There are, of course, button and motion controls, or rather, they're adding button controls instead of just motion controls, which we knew about before. They also reconfirmed that there's a 60 frames per second frame rate now, which, dear God, every time I see that in motion, it looks so good. And now it's gonna be hard going back to Breath of the Wild, the sequel, you know, at 30 frames per second after seeing this. There is also the ability to fast forward dialogue now. They've streamlined item information, meaning, this is Nintendo's cute way of putting it, in that the game no longer hounds you every time you pick up an item you've already picked it before, reminding you of what it is. So all those rupee reminders, hey, it's worth 5 rupees, thank God that's finally gone seemingly.
Yeah.
So, on top of it all, you can now skip cutscenes as well, which will probably be useful for those who played the game more recently, but for those returning to it or playing for the first time, I don't think we'll probably be engaging in that too often, unless it's for a cutscene that repeats itself frequently, which maybe anything involving the sky, perhaps.
Or anytime you keep dying to a boss and need to skip.
Exactly. Actually, that is a good point. That does happen. That's super annoying. So that is going to be that will be a useful feature. So Triss, what's your overall take on these changes so far?
I'm really glad they had just in general, had a trailer showcasing the fact that, look, here's quality of life updates. Yep. I can't think of a time Nintendo did a little trailer like this for any other remakes or re-releases or ports, so it's nice to see that this is here. I guess to go over it in order, because I think that's probably the best way to go about it in this case. In regards to the optional help from Fi, I can't actually see what's different there. Because in the original game, there was times where the sword would glow and you get the little like chiming, and it's like, hey, they want you to press the Fi button to see what she has to say to you. And this seems exactly the same as that, but she wouldn't always force herself out, like when batteries are low or something like that. So I'm not really sure what this changes in this case. This is the one that has stumped me the most, because it looks just like it did in Skyward Sword when it would just flash. So I don't actually know what this does.
I think they did a poor job communicating it. My default assumption, and I could be off base, is that they're now basically taking some of the other reminders she'd have throughout the game and relegating it to that same type of behavior now, where now it's optional rather than her forcing herself out in times that she used to. So I'm hoping that's what it is, rather than it being new things, like new help messages that are just in line with the other ones you just mentioned that were already in the game. Because we don't want more Fi or Fi or whatever the heck it is. We want less, or at least optional. I actually don't hate her, but she could be a definite annoyance at points in the game. And I assume if Nintendo's treating this as a quality of life enhancement, I think they know why people were annoyed by her, and it wasn't the lack of help. So
yeah, I never personally found her that annoying. Maybe that's because I never had my Wii remote batteries died too much. But
it was way more than that though.
It was definitely way more than that. It definitely was. But I personally never found that annoying. But I do see why the change needs to happen. It's actually kind of interesting looking at Skyward Sword compared to, say, Twilight Princess, because there were a lot of things where Twilight Princess was pretty streamlined, and then Skyward Sword suddenly became a bit more handholdy. But looking at what we have here, it actually streamlines it a bit more in general, like we had with Twilight Princess.
Right. Yeah, I do think it does seem like they're maybe taking some lessons from Breath of the Wild, which is almost entirely hands-off, you know, and it seems like they may be, you know, trying to do something similar with Skyward Sword HD as far as they can. They can't go too far with it, obviously. But, you know, especially with the possible tie-in into the Breath of the Wild 2 sequel now. So it kind of makes sense to try and marry the gameplay experiences as much as you possibly can and make this game a little bit less hand-holdy, hopefully, you know? While still giving the option for it if you want it. So I do like that you can now choose to engage seemingly with Fi or Fi. Fi sounds better to me. Fi just sounds weird.
I think in Hyrule Warriors, like the story mode actually calls her Fi. So
I don't. Hyrule Warriors isn't canon to me, Chris. So.
Fair enough.
Next up, we have, of course, reconfirmation of there being motion controls. We've already talked about this button controls. In addition to the return to motion controls, you can choose to use buttons instead of motion if you want. Nothing too surprising there, given the fact we've already discussed it ad nauseum.
Yeah.
But Tris, any final thoughts on this before we move on to the next one?
I'm glad they took the time to actually show a little bit more in terms of like showing both the motion control and button control side by side to kind of show what the different inputs would be.
Right.
I am really curious just because it looks like a lot of it uses the right stick, and I wonder if that's going to get like annoying to use in button control. I'm actually really looking forward to trying it out because I never had a problem with the motion controls originally, so I'm very curious to see what I end up preferring in this case.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is I feel like this is a situation. So the primary controls, if I remember correctly, the sword movement was basically based around an 8-directional method, as I recall. Like you have your straights, you have horizontal, vertical, and then the diagonals between them. Yeah. And I feel like had Nintendo stuck with the octagonal gate they used to have around the control sticks, it would actually work better in this case, so you could more easily hit those diagonals. I'm sure it's not a big deal either way, but I'm like, oh man, I wish they kept that gate. I'm one of the few who, I think one of the few who actually really like those gates. But yeah, I think this actually, I think this is going to be a good change for people who aren't huge fans of motion controls in general. Yeah. Myself, I think I'll stick with the conventional controls, assuming they work well with the Joy-Cons. Because I had major controls trying to swing using the Joy-Con in Mario Golf recently, and now I'm worried. I'm like, oh man, this is going to work in Skyward Sword because those things are so sensitive with holding them with one hand. It's so easy to block the signal that it may just not work that well, and that will be a major issue in Skyward Sword HD. And then there's a fact too that we already had a whole video about this, is that by losing the sensor bar, which the Switch doesn't have obviously, you're losing the ability for it to auto calibrate, meaning you're manually going to have to reset it yourself, presumably every few seconds to every minute or two, in order to make sure make sure the controller is facing the same direction it is on the TV. So yeah, that's kind of all up in the air, but having button controls regardless is a good thing here, and I am curious to see how well they work. Next, we have an enhanced frame rate, and two things about this. One, it's weird it took them this long to officially confirm it, because as one who's been dealing with frame rates now for their career for 12 to 15 years at this point, like it immediately stood out to me that was a massive improvement. But Nintendo didn't draw any attention to it, and which is weird because one, it is a big improvement. It's now running at 60 frames per second instead of 30. And two, like you want to draw attention to that in case people are watching your trailer at anything less than 60 frames per second, or they just don't notice it themselves, Right. And also, it's odd to me that they call it an enhanced frame rate instead of just 60 frames. Maybe they're afraid people aren't fully aware of what that means. But it's like, this is literally double the frames. Like, that's a huge improvement, and it looks so good.
Maybe they didn't specifically say 60 FPS, because I don't remember. Can the handheld Switch, like when the Switch is in handheld mode, can it actually reach 60? Or does it always 30? Okay.
I mean, it can't. It's game dependent. It can if the game allows for it, but there are games that throttle the frame rate in order to maintain a more playability, or less frame rate dips, or higher resolution, things of that nature. So.
Maybe it's not actually a consistent 60, it's just closer to it.
Yeah, that's possible. I hope that's not the case, considering it's, a Wii game. But yeah, I mean, it is possible. It's running at seemingly 1080p now. But in any case, that is an awesome enhancement. We knew about it before, but that combined with the resolution increase, like, this game is looking the best it ever has. Like, it's looking. I tweeted last night taking a snippet from one of the Japanese commercials that came out recently, and like this game is just looking so freaking clean. It's just looking great. So, yeah, I'm excited. It's like taking the I don't know, it's like wiping your lens clean or something, or your glasses clean. It just looks so much better now. All right,
it is really nice.
Next, we have the ability to fast forward dialogue. And this isn't something that jumped out to me immediately, but upon looking back, I'm sure this is something that I wish I had back in the day. And seeing it in motion where you just tap A now just to fill in the whole text screen, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and that's something that usually goes so overlooked in so many games. Like, people don't realize how helpful that is until they don't have it. And honestly, as much as I love Skyward Sword, it really is a slow Zelda. And that text scrolling is slower and then I read it. So it's like, okay, I remember very distinctly in some cases I wouldn't bother reading it until it finished scrolling because it was just taking too long. So it is nice that this allows people to really go at their own pace a lot better. And it's a UI level quality of life update that, as I mentioned, most people don't realize how good it is until it's gone.
Exactly. I mean, UI stuff is persistent throughout the game, so this is a tiny tweak that can have big ramifications. Just in terms of, like, of your overall enjoyment and not being bogged down. Like, for instance, even if, let's assume Phi whatever isn't fixed as much as we assume it is, then this kind of helps cover for that. Even if she still pops up, you can still skip through that dialogue much faster than you could have before, which is an improvement. So yeah, this is just one of those, like, it's a small tweak, but it'll go a long ways in just making it feel even better,
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of along those lines, I'm gonna actually, now I'll go in order here. But it is kind of along the same lines, too, is the fact now, as I touched on earlier, they are streamlining item information, which, again, is basically Nintendo's way of saying they're no longer repeating things you've already read. Where you pick up an item you had before, or a rupee, it's no longer going to repeat the dialogue of what it is, it just gives it to you, which, thank God. That was so freaking annoying. That was a problem that was also in Twilight Princess, and I have no idea how they didn't fully address that in Skyward Sword originally, but they finally are. I believe in the original game, if I recall correctly, the message it wouldn't appear in the same session, but anytime you turn the game on again is when it would reappear. So that's the thing that they're fixing, where it no longer resets. Yeah.
I think that's what it did for Twilight Princess, where whenever the game was reset, it would do it for the first time. In Skyward Sword, it was different. It depended on the item. Like, as they show here, the Stamina Fruit. I think the Stamina Fruit they only ever actually did the first time. I think rupees they did every time. And definitely, like, the little collectibles, like the Amber Relics. Every single time it explained it to you.
Which is annoying in the game, all about collectibles, essentially. Or, not all about, but, like, with a greater focus on it, because you're actually crafting in this game.
Yes.
You're actually making items using an inventory, kind of a little bit similar to Breath of the Wild. It is really interesting how much of Breath of the Wild is actually in this game, how much of it started here. But yeah, so this is going to be a great change, and I've actually heard, going by some people tweeting about it, this might actually affect speedruns, because apparently some speedruns have factored in these annoying messages and ways to avoid them. So now, with this no longer being an issue, this might actually affect some speedrunning routes, seemingly, and that could be interesting.
This whole game's gonna be so much faster than it originally was. We're gonna see the comparisons of people doing like 100% speedruns in this game. There's gonna be like night and day difference of like 4 hours or something like that.
We're gonna find out this is actually like a 30-minute game. Once you remove all the stuff, the game has 30 minutes of gameplay. It's like in football how if you take out like all the downtime, they have like 7 minutes of actual gameplay. That's Skyward Sword right there. Well, speaking of which, another big thing that you can do to cut down the length of the game if you want, that I touched on earlier again, is the ability to skip cutscenes now, seemingly on your first run through. At least based on the trailer. Again, they don't go too in depth, but that's what I assume it means. And yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Again, especially if you're not interested in the story, or if you're familiar with the cutscenes, or if you just don't care. Again, for me, I think I will be watching most of the cutscenes. But in case, as you said earlier, if there's a boss fight or a repeating cutscene, like diving into the sky, for instance, if you can skip them, yeah, I will. I don't want to be. I don't want to be seeing the same cutscene again and again and again.
Yep, especially since Zelda games are known for doing like a hero mode, like a New Game Plus, basically. Sometimes I think some games have given you the skip cutscene option, but only in the hero mode. So when they know for sure you've seen all of them. I don't remember if Skyward Sword did originally, but it is nice to have the confirmation, like, you have this option. So there we go.
So taken all together so far, Triss, what do you think of all this? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but how are you feeling about all these changes in aggregate?
I honestly do think it's great to see. Like, with so much concern earlier of like, oh, is it just like upscaled? Is it just that it looks better and now they have button controls? This really tells us that they are taking the time to go in and try to make the game more. They're trying to increase the reach of the game and make it better for everybody. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that actually comes together. I don't think any of these are like problematic additions or anything. None of these feel like. None of these make me look back and go, oh, why'd they do that? Like, every single one pretty much makes sense. And I think it will only enhance the experience of the game for more people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. These are great, solid changes that are, look at this list. There's nothing really too surprising here. Maybe Nintendo addressing, fee or fi. Fee, fi, fo, fum. Like, only because, like, that's such a level, like, self-realization that we don't often always see from Nintendo, but they have by and large been doing a good job with these Zelda updates. Wind Waker fixed what I thought was the biggest problem with the game involving sailing, which also was a surprise back in the day. Like, that's something that's so intrinsic to the game. I'm surprised Nintendo actually addressed it, particularly because some people liked how it worked. I didn't, and it made the game so much better for it. So it is awesome to see them going in and retooling some things, even if these are, none of these are foundational changes. I would say Wind Waker has had by far the biggest change with the boat, and that just improved it overall. But yeah, these are all great smaller tweaks. However, Triss, it may not be the end of it, because on Twitter they specifically say these tweaks and more have been added to make for a smoother play experience on Nintendo Switch. So they're already teasing there's more in there. What else have they changed? What else do you think what else would you want to see, do you think, Triss?
Well, I think this might be a case of, like, not wanting to talk spoilers on, like, specific sections kind of thing.
Right.
I almost feel like one thing
even though they showed off the final boss or one of the final fights in the in the Japanese trailer.
That's true. Well, it's been 10 years. I think dowsing is something that could always be kind of improved a bit. It was a little finicky in the original game, to the point where I think not many people ended up using it, or even just forgot that it was there. Yeah. Like, I think that could be really, really improved.
That's a great one. Yeah, the moment you said that, I instantly was reminded of the Death Mountain section, but I think there was something I had to use it on. It may have even been where, like, it really taught you the mechanic. I don't remember. It's been 10 years since I played this game. But yeah, that's actually a good one. They could maybe just improve the readability on it, because I remember having trouble with it, like, vertical spaces in general. I forget if it was because it wasn't picking up on things, if I wasn't aimed enough at it, or if I just couldn't tell where it was in the vertical space. I just remember that being an issue. I remember going up and down that darn Death Mountain slope trying to find this one thing. So, for me, I already kind of tipped my hand at this if you follow me on Twitter. I deployed the Padme meme today, or the Padme and Darth Vader meme, or not Darth Vader, whatever his name is before he's Darth Vader. Anyways, the meme going around about the Tad tones. This is something that a lot of people have had issues with over the years, where there's it's just annoying collecting all the Tad tones in the sequence later in the game, and they haven't talked about that yet. So that could possibly be for spoiler-based reasons, as you said, Triss. Now, the reason why I think they may have changed this is because they've made this very change to the other remakes, basically, such as the Twilight Realm in Twilight Princess, where you're basically doing the exact same thing, collecting the Souls of Light or whatever, or Light Spheres, whatever the heck they were.
The Tears of Light, yeah.
Yeah, Tears of Light, there we go. Which is effectively the same thing as the Tad tones. So it's possible that they could make that easier, whether it's reducing the amount of them, or changing, or making it so your hit detection sphere is bigger, so you don't have to get as close to them. Or
yeah,
I think if you died, it would reset all of them, maybe. So that could be something they can improve too. I could be misremembering that. Again, it's been 10 years since I played this, but there are a few things in I think all three of those segments that they could probably tweak or improve, or in some of those. Someone responded to me that one of the other segments near the end of the game annoyed them. So those are things Nintendo could possibly be enhancing.
And we know they don't shy away from actually changing whole systems. I mean, look, as you mentioned, look at Wind Waker HD. They completely changed the Triforce quest for that game.
Right. Yeah, good point. Yeah, there's another improvement.
They definitely know how to have quality life changes in these games. And the other one that sticks out to me, because the Tad tones, or whatever those are called, definitely was a tedious section with the way swimming works. The other one that stands out to me is the imprisoned battles. But that's mostly just a matter of how repetitive they are. But I wonder if they'll streamline them in a way where it won't be as problematic that it is repetitive. Maybe they'll shake up the fights a little bit more to do something different with them. I don't know.
That's a tough one. Yeah, I don't even know how you go about fixing them, because they're so intrinsic to the overall, like, storyline, right? I mean, you could make the game without them. It would just require some major changes, right? Or at least by reducing them. So I don't know. I do wonder how they could possibly change them while keeping them. But I think they would have to keep them. But how could you streamline those? And I guess I'm trying to even remember how they work. Are you trying to knock him back down to the? Or no, you're just trying to kill him before he reaches the top, right?
Yep.
Or the bottom. One of the two?
he starts at the bottom, and you need to stop him before he reaches the temple at the top. And then it gets more and more difficult over time with like the Cruisinator, and he grows limbs, and there's all these different things that makes it difficult in the multiple times you go through that fight.
That's so weird. I mean, they already do change it up to some degree. So, like, could they change it more? Could they make it so he has less health, so it's just easier to deal with? Could they maybe speed up the thing? Because he is kind of slow, as I recall.
Yeah.
I mean, the main issue, I think, is they just started to feel repetitive. It's like, I've done this now, like, what, 2 or 3 times at this point. I think, there are three battles of them, I think?
Yeah, I think there's about 3. I think the main way to improve it is, because I know part of the whole thing is you need to get above him at times, or on top of him. And sometimes that's really difficult, because you either run the whole path, or you use the different, like, gusts of wind to blow you up. But there weren't too many of those, and I almost feel like just by adding more, like, little, like, spots with the gusts of wind, that alone would already make it feel faster, and make it feel better, because you can just get through the fight much faster if, instead of needing to run to the opposite end to go up, then run back, you could just go up right over here.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think that would be one way of going about it. Just, kind of like making it easier to do the things you need to do, I think. So, good idea. The only other tweak I can think of, and again, it's been 10 years. I'm sure if I replayed the original Wii game, I'd have more I could suggest. But I've been purposely holding off so I could enjoy what I hoped would soon be an HD remake, and here it finally is. I do remember, like, the demon character in town, and I remember him having some role with, like, some kind of collectible, and I just never bothered with it because he was so far out of my way. Like, I'm doing okay, I don't need him, and he's kind of like out on these, like, lower rafters, like below the island, I think, almost below Skyloft.
Yeah.
So I barely even bothered with that guy, and that's something that maybe they could improve in some way. Maybe reminders of his existence, or maybe, I don't know, some way of, like, more easily getting to him or something. I'm just trying to think of ideas to make it so I want to engage with him rather than just ignore him.
You never needed to go to Petro too many times, but you needed to give, like, the happiness crystals, whatever they were. I forget how many there were to collect. They looked like star bits on Mario Galaxy, but it was essentially, by solving side quests, you get those rewards, which then you give to him, and you essentially trade them in for the other rewards you normally get from side quests. I don't remember if there were heart containers, but I know it was like the rupee wallet upgrades, for example. So it was definitely helpful to do, and I would like to see that streamlined in some way, even if it's just maybe instead of having to bring it directly to him each time, like maybe like Fi communicates with him or something remotely.
Fair enough. The only other thing I hope for Triss is additional content. The way they word this tweet is these tweaks and more have been added to make it for a smoother play experience. I do think that just means more tweaks, but I think that opens the door possibly for maybe a little bit more content. And what I would most love to see is just more to do in the sky. Like, they have this giant sky world. There's really not a whole lot to do on it or in it, and it really it's just an elaborate like world map. That's essentially what it is, and they can't change that. Like, that's what it is, unfortunately. But I do think they could make it a little bit more interesting to explore. Add a few new islands, or at least an island, maybe with a game or something, or, I don't know, a new character, or something to engage with. There's something new to find, you know? And this isn't unheard of. They've added, like, dungeons to prior remakes in the Zelda series. I don't think they've added anything to that extent for the remasters we've seen so far.
They did
except for maybe 3DS.
They did for Twilight Princess HD. They had like the Cave of Trials or whatever it was called with the Wolf-Link amiibo,
that's right.
And where you had to go through the whole thing, and however many hearts you had at the end would get saved to the amiibo, which would carry into Breath of the Wild. But they could do that as an additional feature with the Zelda and Loftwing, maybe. Maybe at this point, I think it's hard to say because they would have revealed at this point if the Loftwing amiibo could work for Breath of the Wild 2. And I only say that because Skyward Sword releasing would just spoil that it has that purpose, if that is in there. Something like that. Yeah. So
I prefer whatever new features they add, if any, to not involve the amiibo.
Right.
Ideally. Did they have races in Skyward Sword with the Loftwings? They must have, right?
I don't remember if there were races outside of the initial like story beat where like you have to like win the egg from Grooze or something like that, which was essentially a race. But I would love to see that turn into some sort of minigame that you could revisit.
It'd be kind of fun if they added like an official like race mode where you're racing the Loftwings, you're trying to maybe win a new item or something. Hey, there we go. Maybe there could be some kind of special item you can get in the game.
Ooh.
I don't know what it would be. Maybe like an upgraded version of something you have, like a beetle that can go farther. Actually, that would be a good improvement. The flying beetle without it, having a longer flight time on it. I think.
I think I think you could upgrade the Beetle to do that, and also make it move faster.
Okay. But
one thing that came to mind as a new item is in Wind Waker HD they had the Picto box from the original game, but now you can have the selfie mode.
Yes!
I would love if this game had a proper photo mode, maybe involving a camera, plus with the selfie mode. Oh, that would be great. We need more photo modes in Zelda games.
I 100% agree. Yeah, I love that. I love the selfie mode in Wind Waker HD, and I would love for that to come back, particularly with the fact it's way easier. We can share them now on social networks that people actually use.
Yeah, exactly.
So that would be amazing. Yeah, that was such a fun addition to Wind Waker. Yeah, but unfortunately, as you said, they already had a camera item, which I don't think they do in Skyward Sword.
No.
So it might not make as much sense, but I don't care. Make it happen. Especially Breath of the Wild had a camera. If you're trying to connect this to Breath of the Wild, there you go. Add a camera to Skyward Sword. So
I think it'd be really fun to do with how honestly beautiful Skyward Sword is with its art style. I would love to be able to actually like take photos in game that way. It would just be so nice.
I agree. Well, any final thoughts, Tris, on things on anything we've discussed or anything else you'd like them to add?
I guess as the last thing is I don't remember it being there originally, and it's such a small thing. I hope there's a way to listen to the music in game. It's just a small thing that I enjoy seeing in games. Just a recognition of the ability to access the soundtrack and the recognition of what the music is. Zelda games are always really big on their music, so I always love having that access in games.
That'd be cool. I guess, you know, I have two more thoughts.
Okay.
One other tweak I think they could make is actually to streamline the opening of the game. To some extent, they already have with being able to speed up the dialogue and reducing the item redundancy, the text. But the opening still was a bit of a slog. I didn't think it was as bad as Twilight Princess, but it was still longer than it should be for a game that merely followed Twilight Princess.
That's fair.
I don't know what they could do exactly, but it would be nice if they found some way to streamline that. Second, though, is just overall, I'm excited to revisit this game. Like, it's looking great. I love to. It does seem like they're adding some lighting effects as well. Like, at least they look like they're beyond what the Wii was capable of. At least I don't remember them on the Wii. And I'm hoping there's even more visual tweaks like that, too, throughout the game. Because, yeah, what we're seeing is looking just overall gorgeous. Obviously, it's not what you would get from a fully modern Zelda game. But this is looking just fantastic. And I am really excited to revisit the game with these tweaks and hopefully others that we don't know about yet, and just to see how much better it really is. With, albeit my concern, the motion controls possibly being worse than they were before. So I'm really curious to see how those hold up. Yeah,
we'll have to see. I'm really excited though to revisit my second favorite Zelda after all this time.
What's your first?
Wind Waker.
Oh, okay, nice, yeah. All right, Wind Waker HD or the original?
HD. As much as I love the original, HD had so many updates to it that just made it even more perfect for me.
Well, then in that case, Skyward Sword HD might be the same for you here. Maybe it'll top Wind Waker HD. We'll see. See what I did there? We'll see, like, in Wind Waker. Alright, we're gonna end it here. Everyone, thank you so much for watching our discussion of Skyward Sword HD's quality of life changes. If you enjoyed this discussion, make sure to click that subscribe button, ring that bell, and of course, stay tuned for more on the game in the near future. It's out in just 2 weeks. 2 weeks as of today.
Oh, man.
It's super soon. I can't wait. And yeah, we'll have a lot more coverage of it. So with everyone, we'll catch you later. Thanks. Bye.